Hello everyone. Welcome to the video where we're going to discuss all the possible questions from the story Madam Rides the Bus. So I hope you're ready. Let's begin. The first question: who is the protagonist of the story Madam Rides the Bus? How old is she? The protagonist in the story is an 8-year-old girl named Valli, who is called Valli for short. So the protagonist is a little girl who is called Valli. What was Valli's favorite pastime? Why did she do that? So this is an important question. Valli was very curious about things. Her favorite pastime was standing in front of the doorway of her house and watching what was happening outside in the streets. Since she had no playmates of her own age, this was all that she had to do. So the first question, what was her favorite pastime? She was curious and looking in outside her house. And why did she do that? Because she had no playmates of her own age. Moving to the next question. What was the most fascinating thing for her at all? A. Standing near the doorway and watching children play. B. Watching different vehicles pass in front of her house. C. A bus that traveled from her village to the nearest town. Or D. Watching animals near her house. Okay. Yes, it is right that she enjoyed standing near the doorway, but there weren't any children playing outside. So the correct answer is the bus that traveled from her village to the nearest town. So option number A was a trick option. Moving to the next one. What was the source of unending joy for Valli? The sight of the bus that traveled from the village to the nearest town, that passed through the street each hour and that filled each time with a new set of passengers, was a source of unending joy for Valli. Again, an important question. What was the source of unending joy for her? What wish crept into her that grew day by day? So, day after day, when she watched the bus, a tiny wish crept into her to ride the bus, and it grew stronger and stronger until it was an overwhelming desire. Overwhelming is full of emotions. So, first a tiny wish crept into her, then which grew and grew stronger until it was an overwhelming desire to ride the bus. What would she do when she would see the bus? A. Stare wistfully at the people who got on and off the bus. B. Their faces would kindle longing, hopes, and dreams in Valli. C. Have the overwhelming desire to ride the bus. Or D. All of the above. So, what would she do when she would see the bus? She would stare wistfully at the people, and by looking at their face, it would kindle longing, hopes, and dreams. Then she would have the overwhelming desire to ride the bus. Therefore, the answer is all of the above. Yes. So sometimes they might ask you the question, what emotions would she feel when she would see the bus? Then you have to write option A, B, and C in that. Okay. Moving to the next. If one of her friends would ride the bus, what feeling would she feel? A. Happy. B. Jealous. C. Proud. Or D. Sad. So the answer is Valli would be jealous, but she would use the word too proud because she did not know the meaning of it. But what would she feel? She would feel jealous. Next, how did Valli find out about the bus journey? Over many months, Valli would listen carefully to the conversation between her neighbors and the people who regularly use the bus. She also asked few discreet questions here and there, and that is how she found out about the bus journey. What details of the bus journey did she find out? First, she found out that the nearest town from her village was 6 miles from her village. Second, the fare was 30 paise one way. So, in order to go and come back, she would need 60 paise. And third, the trip to the town took 45 minutes. So, next, what was her plan? So her plan was to take the 1 o'clock afternoon bus, reach the town at 1:45 p.m. On reaching the town, she would stay seated on her seat and would pay another 30 paisa. So she would be back home by 2:45 p.m. So on and on went her thoughts as she calculated and recalculated and replanned all over again. So this was her plan to ride the bus. Why did the conductor call Valli madam? So this is again an important question because the story in itself is called Madam Rides the Bus. When the conductor stretched his hand to help Valli get onto the bus, she said never mind and that she could get on the bus by herself and she didn't need help. Since the conductor was a jolly sort of man, he said, "Oh, please don't be angry with me, my fine madam," and that is how he started calling her madam. What does slack time of the day mean? A. The most busy time of the day. B. The time when people take rest. C. The time when people sleep. Or D. The time when work can be delayed without much negative impact. So if you have watched the line by line explanation of the same story by me, you would definitely get this answer right, which is option D, the time when work can be delayed without much negative impact. Okay, I hope all these questions until now are clear. Let's move to the next one. Why was Valli overcome with shyness after she got into the bus? So if you can recall the story, you would know the answer. It was the slack time of the day, and there were only 6 to 7 passengers on the bus. So it wasn't the busy time. When the conductor sarcastically said, "All please move aside, make way for madam," all the passengers were laughing along with the conductor, and so she was overcome with shyness and avoided everyone's eyes and sat down quietly. Okay, so this is the context of why she was overcome with shyness. Why did Valli stand up in the bus from her seat? A. Because it was crowded and there was an elderly man standing. B. Her view outside was cut off by a canvas blind and she couldn't see outside. C. She wanted to see the animals clearly from the bus. Or D. She wanted to see the banks of the canal as the road was too narrow. So what is the answer? The answer is option B. Her view of outside was cut off by a canvas blind and she couldn't see outside. Therefore, she had to stand from her seat. Why was Valli annoyed when the old man had called her a child? So the old man was concerned for her safety and asked Valli to sit down. He also addressed her as a child. But Valli was annoyed and in an unfriendly way said to the old man, "There is nobody here who is a child," and that she had also paid the fare of 30 paise just like everyone else. She irritably said that she was not a child and that she was 8 years old and she didn't want to be mollycoddled or pampered. So this is why Valli was annoyed with the old man because he had called her a child and she said that there was no child in the bus and that she was 8 years old and she had also paid the exact fare as everybody else. Why did Valli find the old woman to be repulsive? So there was an old woman who also came and sat beside her. So why did she find the old woman to be repulsive? Is it A, Because she had big holes in her earlobes. B. She wore such ugly earrings. C. She could smell the beetle nut she was chewing. Or D. She thought, who could be sociable with such a person? So, why did Valli find the old woman to be repulsive? The answer is all of these options. And she found her to be repulsive. How did Valli save money for the trip? She had thriftily means very cautiously and being very, like being a miser, conjuice. So she had thriftily saved whatever stray coins came her way. She resisted every temptation to buy peppermints, toys, balloons, and like that she had saved a total of 60 paise. It had been the most difficult on the day of the village fair, when she had to control the urge of riding the merry-go-round, even though she had the desire and she also had the money. So this is how she saved the money. She resisted every temptation and saved the money. How did Valli manage to leave the house without her mother noticing? Every day after lunch, her mother would nap for around 1 to around 4 o'clock or so. So she used these hours for the excursion outside the village. What made Valli clap the hands with glee or clap her hands with glee? When she saw a young cow, tail high in the air, running very fast in the middle of the road, right in front of the bus, and the more the driver honked, the more the cow got frightened. Somehow this was very funny to Valli and she laughed till she had tears in her eyes. So she clapped her hands with glee when she saw the young cow, and all this sight of the cow getting frightened, she found it very funny and she laughed till she had tears in her eyes. Why didn't she get off the bus once it reached the town? Valli was much too afraid to get off the bus and look at the sights. So she admitted finally that she was too afraid. On the trip back, why was Valli overcome with sadness? Again, important question. What had been a lovable, beautiful creature just a while ago had now lost its life, charm, and it looked so horrible, so frightening as it lay there, legs spread-eagled with blood all over. And looking at the sight, Valli was overcome with sadness. Okay, moving to the next question. What was her reaction after seeing the dead cow? Or they could ask the question, why did Valli refuse to look outside the window on the way back? The memory of the dead cow haunted her and dampened her enthusiasm. So we already know that in the beginning she was really enthusiastic to take the trip. So the memory of the dead cow haunted her, dampened her enthusiasm, and she no longer wanted to look outside the window. What did Valli mean by, I was just agreeing with what you said about things happening without our knowledge? So, what did Valli actually mean here? The bus journey had given her a deeper understanding of life and death, that life is unpredictable, and she sees the gap between our knowing that there is death and our understanding of it. So she knew that there is death, the concept of death, but she had for the first time witnessed death. And that had changed her perspective about a lot of things. So that is what she said, that about knowing things happening without our knowledge, because there was a lot of things that happened in that journey which she experienced for the first time. How was Valli different in the beginning and after the end of the bus journey? Again, an important question. In the beginning of the story, Wali was a fearless, curious 8-year-old who was easily fascinated by the simple pleasures of life. She took a trip without worrying about the risk and danger involved in the journey. But after she went on the journey, she accepted that she was scared to get out of the bus alone. And after she witnessed the death of the cow, she was overcome with fear and was haunted by the sight of it. So, this is how there is a stark difference between Wali in the beginning of the bus journey and towards the end. And that's the end of all the questions. I hope you found this video enjoyable. Please share it among your friends. Study well, revise the concepts over and over again so that you're quite thorough with all the questions. All the very best, and I'm praying for all of you. God bless.